Spirits of deceased ancestors also frequently are described as beings of light or also as stars. And the other world itself is often said to be a realm of light, just a bright, bright place. Then there's judgment, or some kind of conduct evaluation or moral assessment of one's earthly life. And this is normally assisted by a deity or some sort of council of judges.
The deities, the council of judges, council of elders, you know, the ascended masters, the soul group teacher, blah, 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 blah. Whoever the hell it is can go pound sand because we're done with their bull. And enough. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. You just gotta pick these little pieces up. But I mean, this guy does a hell of a job, breaking it all down.
Interestingly, here there are also life reviews in some of these texts. Life review is a very common near-death experience phenomena in which individuals experience their whole life condensed into a very short time, or almost as if it's occurring, replaying all at once, literally life flashing before your eyes. And this is often accompanied by feelings of moral evaluation. There's an example of this in Egypt in a text called The Teaching for King Merikare, where the gods judge the king's entire life history, which unfolds in an hour, is how they describe it, and it's placed before him like a treasure, his entire life. In Mesopotamia, a dead man declares his sins before a god, and the deceased
like a treasure.
Life history, which unfolds in an hour, is how they describe it, and it's placed before him like a treasure, his entire life.
Like a treasure. See that amazing life you just had? We're going to show you your life review. Oh, sorry, the dog. See? Okay, the dog isn't picking up, I don't think, on the mic. She's going insane. But you know, yeah, see that wonderful life that you had? How amazing it was. Imagine being like a slave or something like that. Or you know, everyone has struggles in life, but there are definitely varying degrees of horridness that goes on here. Just imagine crossing and they're saying, look, that's a treasure you just left. Oh, and the life review, okay. Well, we got to get you back down there. You didn't meet our expectations. This type of bullshit they pull, it's nuts.
Placed before him like a treasure, his entire life.
Damn right, PKO.
In Mesopotamia, a dead man declares his sins before a god, and the deeds of the deceased hero Gilgamesh, who's the Sumerian version of Gilgamesh, his deeds are reviewed by a panel of gods as well, before he proceeds to the next level. In India, in the Upanishads, a life review is described just as in a typical NDE. Then we have reaching obstacles or barriers or limits.
Okay, so right away we see the rivers, the bodies of water. Well, what is that? That to me, every time I see water in relation to afterlife stuff, it's always something with the memory. It's always something. His interpretation, which we'll go over in a paper later on, is more or less, he thinks it's symbolic of the tears of the deceased loved ones that, you know, you lost, the ones that you're going to be reunited with. So, I mean, that's his interpretation. You know, it very well may have that connection. I'm not denying it, but, you know, the truth of the matter is when you see water, that means memory zap. That's what it means in my eyes. So, because that's the pervasive narrative that seems to come with it, that it's, you know, the river of forgetfulness. Hey, go on in there. Everything's going to be just fine. Zoot. No.
Then we have reaching obstacles or barriers or limits, often bodies of water which can't be passed in the text. There's also an interesting overlap here with the concept of judgment. because in every civilization, the spirit of the deceased is stopped on the way to the underworld or to the heavenly realm, either by an ancestor or a spirit or a god, and interrogated.
There you go. There you go. Hey, there's your loved one, the divine beings. Time for interrogation. You know, hold up a minute. You know me. You know me. You can trust me. Get out of here. Get out of here.
Stopped on the way to the underworld or to the heavenly realm, either by an ancestor or a spirit or a god, and interrogated. The interrogation usually concerns the identity of the deceased. Over and over, all across the world, I've been reading, who are you when they get to the afterlife realm? They're always asked this question. They're also often asked about the nature of the divine, the nature of their own true selves. So it's a case of understanding that the true self is a spiritual self, and also about details of the afterlife.
It's your true life, but you owe me an explanation. What were you doing back there? I mean, it's really, these beings have any right to say anything about us and our behavior. And they're running this clown show? Get out of here. Get out of here.
A case of understanding that the true self is a spiritual self, and also about details of the afterlife. So they should have some kind of foreknowledge of what to expect as they progress on their journey. Those who don't show this requisite knowledge are not allowed to pass.
Oh, so see, you don't have the knowledge. You're not getting past there. No. We got something way worse for you. Even though all the above are horrible options. But, you know, see this craziness?
They progress on their journey. Those who don't show this requisite knowledge are not allowed to pass. That very idea of not being allowed to pass that certain state recalls the return element of the near-death experience, where individuals are told either that it's not their time to die or that there's been a case of mistaken identity. It's after this point that they then return to the body.
Yeah, your journey's not finished yet. You can't go past there, blah, 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 blah. You know, again, the pyramid scheme, you know, the end of years are not ever sticking up for themselves. They're too lost in the delusion, the divine fakery and all that stuff. You know, and too hit with the love bomb and you know, feeling around an environment that is familiar to them, beings that are familiar to them, and it's horrible. It's horrible. They do not stick up for themselves. That's why they come back. They buy into what is being sold.
Then obviously there are journeys to other realms, and the sense that the afterlife realm is the true one, a return to the origin point, as Mircea Eliade puts it, or going home. That's also very common in near-death experiences. There are also multiple realms discussed. It's very rarely just two realms, as we often think of afterlife in the West, heaven and hell. It's more often a progression of experiences. And then finally, feelings of oneness involving the association or union of the self with the divine, or the absolute or ultimate reality, or whatever sort of term you want to use. In most cases, the spirit of the deceased becomes one with a particular deity, or sometimes with particular deities simultaneously. This idea of omnipotence and omnipresence, though sometimes they will just simply transform into a discrete god or godlike entity themselves.
See, I mean, this is how they just run the mill on how many different ways they can come at you. Oh, yeah, hey, we'll turn you into God for a day. You know, yeah, go around, have fun in the astral, do things, you know, make yourself feel good, and then, you know, knock, knock. All right, fun's over. Back to Earth.
And another intriguing parallel involves the after effects of near-death experiences. Many people who have these experiences claim that it gave them a new sense of meaning in their life, or a new sort of spiritual renewal. This is very much related to William James's idea of the fruits of religious experience. And this recalls the fact that the netherworld in all of these regions in all of these traditions, is a place where one attains knowledge, and it's a place of rebirth. Now remember that all of these similarities that I've listed in these past few slides are despite a lack of cultural continuity, a temporal separation of at least 850 years and up to more than 4,000 years, and despite the fundamental differences between various ancient mythological or otherwise instructional texts and modern reports of near-death experiences. So to me, the implication of that is that the authors of the texts were familiar with near-death experiences, and the origins of afterlife conceptions in these ancient civilizations are thus rooted in NDEs. And this reinforces the idea of a symbiotic relationship where culture-specific beliefs influence universal experiences and vice versa. Each culture has its own way of experiencing and expressing the NDE, but the NDE is always interpreted as an indication of what will happen when we die. I should say quasi-always, almost always. There are occasional people that will have them and doubt it later on, such as the famous Susan Blackmore. To argue the reverse, that the conceptions came before the experience, doesn't explain how a set of thematically consistent ideas could be independently invented worldwide, or how that set of ideas could influence the spontaneous, universal near-death experience. In other words, cross-cultural experience is explicable without pre-existing common belief, but cross-cultural belief is not explicable without common experience. Now,
hear that?
Influence the spontaneous, universal near-death experience. In other words, cross-cultural experience is explicable without pre-existing common belief, but cross-cultural belief is not explicable without common experience.
There you go.
Now, if you'd like to read more about that particular phase of my research, it's been published in this book. But this theory of religious beliefs...
And just so you know, I do have a link to that book that you guys can use. You know, I'll pop that up right now for you. Just bear with me. You know, I'll let him go and I'll hunt it down. Thought I had it here.
Lying in anomalous or religious experiences has a long, long pedigree, starting with E.B. Tyler, if not earlier. In 1871, Tyler wrote, "Men whose spirits, traveling in the hallucinations of extreme illness to the land of the dead, have returned to reanimate their bodies and tell what they have seen." And he argued that such experiences form the foundation of beliefs.
Boom, boom, boom. You know, again, this is what, 1871, this guy? And fast forward to what, when did Moody's book come out? I think the 70s, 71, something. Actually, yeah, about 100 years after this, and after this guy, with Primitive Culture. And, you know, he starts putting down, hey, the experience you're going to have is customized based on a belief system, cultural upbringing, and things like that. And, pattern, boom, the patterns hit time and time and time again. And, this is old knowledge. It's just like, it's scattered everywhere, and like, it's just being revived now and put out in a huge way. So, we're really, really lucky to have such amazing researchers out there and access to the internet and all this data. I mean, we really, of all the times we could have, hey, not like we want to reincarnate, but of all the times we did choose to reincarnate, this is the one, because we have access to so much information that it makes it easier, well, not easy, but easier to piece together everything about the deception. So for that, we must be thankful.